The Iron Claw is one of those films that the second I saw the trailer, I was hooked, even though I knew anybody around me probably was like, okay, a wrestling movie. Um, and I'm glad that I actually spent the time to go to a theater to watch this. And I'm going to give you my thoughts right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. We are doing these I am doing these Oscar films this week, next week, kind of catching up on all the films that have a little bit of Oscar buzz, Golden Globe buzz, award buzz around them. And Island Call is one of them. I saw this trailer and I immediately was like, I want to see it. Now, at the time, I didn't think anything of it as far as being a best film, but it fit something that hits to my genre. I'm a huge professional wrestling fan, although the Von Erichs and their families sort of predate me. Their height was in the late 70s, early 80s, where I was born in the early 80s. I didn't become cognizant or remember much about wrestling until post probably like 86, 87. And at that point, the Von Erichs were sort of on their tail end. But Kevin Von Erich is a name that continuously popped up. So when I saw this, I'm like, I got to see this because this is one of the great families of professional wrestling. I say all that to say that even if you don't have much recollection or information about who the Von Erichs are, this film is still going to pack a punch for you. It's a movie that sort of, yes, explains some of the wrestling jargon, heat, all this, all that good stuff, but the majority of this film, what this thesis of this film is that a father has a dream and his dream got deferred and put to the side for his sons, and thus he pushed that dream onto them. And they are living their lives to both please and get admiration from their father. And so it is the sins of their father, the hope of their father, the goals of their father being placed upon the children. But Zac Efron plays Kevin Von Erich, and Kerry Von Erich is played by Jeremy Allen White from The Bear fame. There's two other brothers, Michael and David, and Fritz is the father, played by Holt McCallany. Um, Let me say that this movie, without having any history of wrestling, is going to hit you in the face. It's a hard hitting drama with some really well done performances. Zac Efron being the true standout. It's an understated performance, not over the top. You don't have screaming, yelling, overacting over performance, but it's very subdued, so very understated. But there's a lot of pain on that face, and to the very end, where he does sort of have a cathartic moment, and it sort of was a release because it's a cathartic moment against the thoughts and principles of what he has been taught all of his life, and people around him have to say, "No, you're good. You can go ahead and do this." And it's a sort of that moment, like, oh, everything that my father had taught me has sort of been wrong. And the bond that these brothers have together is so immense. It's insane. And so when tragedy starts happening, when it's this Von Erich curse that sort of occurs to this family, and I'm not going to go into it. And I implore anybody who is going into this movie, don't look up what happens to the brothers or what happens to them. Don't do that. Don't do yourself a disservice. Just go in and accept this. Let this movie wash over you, because when it's all said and done, you're gonna be like, oh, that's an amazing story, an amazingly well done film. And Zac Efron, you should be on a couple of people's, if not Golden Globes for sure. You should definitely get a nod somewhere in the Academy Awards. I have to watch more films, and you'll see those coming up on this on this channel. But Zac Efron, he should be in there, and this should be a Best Picture nominee. It's one of my favorite films of the year, and I think, not being a wrestling fan, I think you'll walk out of this saying that was a damn fine movie. And it might even cause you to go kind of search down the rabbit hole to see how unfortunate and tragic the scenario that occurred around the Von Erichs really was. Um, the only sort of knock I have on the film, and it's not a big one, and it doesn't affect me because I am a wrestling fan, but I think the time stamps or time dates don't, it's not clear. And because they have one actor playing the same thing throughout the time, Zac Efron, um, you see Kevin Von Erich from 25 all the way up to 40, 40 plus. There's nothing really other than the size of his kids and the number of kids that pop up that allows you to sort of get any type of timestamp or year stamp on it. Otherwise, you're kind of like, well, Holt and Zach look the same, so I don't know and Jeremy all look the same, so I don't know really what the time is. That's the only sort of hang up that I have, but all in all, it's not enough to dissuade you. And like I said, if you're paying attention to sort of key things, you hear a word going there like, oh, you're approaching 40, blah, blah, blah. It's just a throwaway line, but it's enough to sort of get us back into the year um, without actual time dates all the time. You get a couple of those when you're doing like prime wrestling matches, but you don't get it so much as dramatic moments and your life just sort of keeps going along. But on my scale of play it again, Sam, I didn't mind that. Once is enough, or give me a time stone so I never had to think about this film. This is 100% a play it again, Sam. This has gone into that top 5, top 10 list of the year for me. I think, wrestling fan or not, you're going to walk away with something to enjoy out of this movie, and it will take aside the wrestling piece of it. Pull the wrestling part of it out. You have a story about a father who pushes his kids, and the brotherly bond is tested over and over again based on that sort of huge shadow. And it's sad because when you get in there and you see that the one dream, the one goal that Kevin originally has when he first meets his wife isn't his. It's a goal that his father has. You're just like, oh, this is a wild and terrible, just the hold that he has, the iron claw that he has. It's not only on the Fritz doesn't just have that on his opponents, he also has that on his kids. Have you seen the Iron Claw? What did you guys think? Or here, leave your thoughts and comments on the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.